We carried out some research to see how many state schools were playing any form of competitive cricket, and we found that out of the 21,000 state schools in this country, just under 10% of them played any form of meaningful competitive cricket. So we felt we needed to do something about it. So we launched Chance to Shine in 2005, a £50 million project to get 2 million young people involved across 7,000 state schools, which at the time was a third of state schools. We're sort of 9 years into the programme now. We've got 2.5 million children involved who'd never played the game before. We're just a touch under 11,000 state schools, and we've raised £49 million as a charity. We've had backing all the way through from Sport England, and we've got 1 million girls involved. And today later on today, we're celebrating the 1 millionth girl involved in our programme. So it's been a great journey for us. Initially when we started, people said it wouldn't work. There's no appetite for cricket in schools, curriculum pressures, teachers not being interested. But it was a great challenge for us. We took that up, working in partnership with the ECB and the cricket fraternity really got behind it. And now we're sort of, I guess, a success story of what can be achieved if you've got a proper structure in cricket that gives access and opportunities to young people.
So what are the main challenges then, particularly in inner cities and spreading the game there?
One of the questions we were asked quite a lot actually is that Chance to Shine is about linking clubs and schools together. What do you do in the really deprived areas where there are no cricket clubs around? So we launched a programme called Street Chance, which is really there to try and work with young people who didn't have the access and opportunity to play cricket because of the lack of facilities. So we brought in a different format, a game called Street 20, which is take ball cricket. It's got its own rules and regulations. We almost redefined what a cricket club was, so we'd find local community hubs and call those community cricket clubs to make them feel that they were part of something and give them ownership around kind of developing that kind of environment. And it's kind of really developed. We're now operating 61 projects across 7 cities, in places like Dewsbury and Birmingham and Bristol and various places. Kids who normally wouldn't have had the opportunity to get involved in competitive cricket, but it's also a social outlet for them as well. They get together. A lot of the time, especially in the city areas, you have territorial issues about going across into different areas. But we found a way to kind of bring people together, and that's been the beauty of cricket, is that it's got the power to do that. And we've kind of developed that, and we've got national competitions where you get teams from all over the country coming together to play take ball cricket. And it's really, I guess, it's a step for them in terms of rather than saying, well, your only option is to move from the school into a cricket club, and you've got to travel 10 miles to get there. This provides a different outlet for them, and the better ones we support them in terms of moving them on to cricket clubs afterwards.
And is the duration of it quite important as well? You start off with a shortened format, take ball, accessibility, all those kinds of things just to get people interested.
Yeah, I mean the take ball format, it's been running in Pakistan and India for years. It's how a lot of the cricketers learn their game. It's just sort of wrapping the tennis ball up in electrical tape basically, but it stops it kind of bouncing too much, but it makes it a bit heavier. But yeah, it's really about giving them the chance to play. They've embraced it, they really enjoy it. It's 20 balls, the game's over, you can play as many innings as you want. But I think it fits in with the lifestyles of young people, and I think that's been critical, and that's where cricket, I think, has advanced so much. Because I think many years ago, we kind of wanted everyone to fit into what we thought was right. And now we're actually going out there and saying, you tell us what it is that you need, and we'll support you and give that to you. And certainly this has been right at the top of people's agenda. We want a short game, we want it to be informal, an opportunity for us to play with our friends and have fun.
Yeah, I'd imagine that there'll be a lot of British Asians playing, particularly in areas like Birmingham and Leeds. Do you think it's getting easier now for British Asians to break into county cricket?
I think it is. If you look around the county circuit now, there's Asian players pretty much at every county now. And I think that I've always been a big believer that, when I was growing up and playing in Birmingham, in the city of Birmingham, people would say, why are you pursuing this? There's absolutely no chance of you becoming a pro cricketer. But,
well, why would they say that?
Well, because I think they felt that there was a lot of prejudices. I think they thought cricket at that time was racist. They just thought that unless you came from a certain class or a certain background, you had absolutely no opportunity to get there. And I was quite determined and pretty resilient from a young age, and that's what I wanted to do. I managed to break through. So, one of the lessons I try and teach, I guess, young people is that, yes, there are always going to be barriers, no matter what you do and what background you come from. and the barriers are going to be varied and etc. But really it's up to yourself. You know, the easy excuse is to say, I didn't get there because of, and that's something that we try and take away from the young people, particularly in street chance. We run a lot of workshops around, well actually, what more can you actually be doing and how much responsibility can you take for where you want to go in the future? And I think certainly we're seeing now a lot more players coming through. You know, all the counties now have got a talent ID system. As you saw there in Birmingham, going out to the parks leagues, trying to spot talent, working in partnership. And I think the route through now is not as formal as it used to be. Whereas before, when I started, you had to sort of go through an under 11s, 12s, 13s county age group. Now you could be playing parks cricket, and there have been good examples of Atik Jaled, who plays at Warwickshire now, who really came out of the Parks League at
Really?
16, you know, and they spotted him, put forward, went along for trials, and they said, yeah, you know, we want to bring you on board, and now he's playing at Warwickshire in the first team. So, you know, I think the informal routes to get there now are there, and I think the partnership working is definitely helping.
Do you think we could get more players coming through than playing professionally? Because I mean, I play club cricket on a Saturday, and the Middlesex League, there's a lot of Asians playing club cricket. It's the same all over the country. Professional level, you don't quite get the same numbers pushing through. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I mean, if you look proportionally, there's a great argument to say that a lot more should be coming through and should be wanting to do it. I think there's also a lot of pressures from home as well about sort of careers, and you know, so I think it's a real balance between, well, actually, do I want to try and pursue this, or is this something that actually I could be going away, getting myself a career which will be there for the rest of my life, becoming qualified in something. So within the Asian household, there's always that pressure, always coming from that, as well as getting married at quite a young age, to try and push that through and say, well, get yourself a career. But, you know, yeah, absolutely. I think that there's still a huge amount more to do to get more Asians coming through, which is more proportionate to the number of youngsters playing cricket. As you saw there, you know, that there's hundreds of them playing parks cricket, but only a few will actually make it. But one of the things as well, Matt, which again we try and instill in the young people is, you know, it takes a lot of hard work, you know, to actually get there. And I think sometimes there is an easy excuse just to say, well, actually things have got a little bit hard, but actually I'll blame other people. And I've always been a big believer that it's a two-way process. That you've got to put the hard yards in, you've got to make the effort. There's a huge amount you've got to learn and fit into the culture you're going into, and not expecting the culture to completely bow down to you. And I think that's important. When I walked through those big gates at Edgbaston back in 1989, you know, I learned very quickly that actually it was an alien environment, but actually what did I need to do in terms of adapt my style, the way that I've been for most of my life, in order to fit in. And that doesn't mean losing your values or what you're about, but actually about, well, you know, if I'm going to get through here, I need to be able to do all the things around socialising and various other things. But actually it's a great learning curve for me and for my development to be in somewhere perhaps out of my comfort zone that I maybe wouldn't have been in. So, you know, I think from both sides there's still a huge amount of work to do.
How did you get involved in the game?
I actually was spotted in the playground by a teacher who was looking at it one day. I was sort of 12 years old playing in the school playground in inner city Birmingham, and the teacher was looking out from the staff room and saw me play, and came out and said, where did you learn cricket? And I said, from watching on TV, sir. And I remember at that stage the West Indies were here in 1980, and I remember sort of sitting in front of the TV watching it. But that was really where I learned it. But also a lot of my friends locally, you know, we put milk crates sort of in the middle of the road and play and move them that way when cars came and that sort of thing. So we were pleased when our road became a cul-de-sac because it meant less cars coming up. But that was the thing. And, you know, I mean, take where I grew up, within a 3-mile radius, we've produced 15 professional cricketers.
Really?
Over the last 10 years, 12 years. That's within a 3-mile radius, from the alleys to Mohammed Sheikh to Shariar to, you know, lots of players who have come through. And I was lucky enough that in my class, there was 2 of my friends who played cricket with me, and they went on to become pro cricketers. So 3 of us from our class, from this inner city school, went on to become pro cricketers. Myself at Warwickshire and those 2 at Worcester. So, you know, the opportunities are there if they want to become pro cricketers. And certainly, you know, as I said, there's much to be done on both sides to narrow that gap, to make it a lot easier for that kind of route to be taken.
Were you aware at the time that you were the first British-born Pakistani to play professional cricket?
not until I got signed up actually in early summer of 1990, when a lot of media people were coming and saying, "Did you realise?" So yeah, it was symbolic from that point of view, but I guess it didn't mean a lot to me at the time. But as years went on, a lot more players came through. Usman Afzals, you have to have Habibs, the Alis, and it was interesting because a lot of them actually said that they did various interviews, and they said that we remember when Wasim broke through, and it kind of gave us a bit of hope that we'd have an opportunity. And my dad was saying, "Look, this boy's made it from Birmingham, you can do it as well." So from that point of view, it was great to be able to feel that it paved the way for a lot of the younger guys coming through to feel that they had an opportunity and they had a chance to make it. And thankfully, quite a few of them have gone on and played for England.
We'll open it up to the floor for some questions in a minute, but I've got to ask you about the 95 double-winning Warwickshire side, because you came into that side, it was your first year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Came into this amazing side with the likes of Alan Donald, Nick Knight, Brian Lara, Roger Toos, all sorts of good players, Dermot Reed. What was that like coming into such a successful dressing room? It
was amazing because the day before I got 150 in a second team game. I turned up the following day for practice. And I remember Gladstone Small coming over to the second team dressing room. In those days you got changed separately, and coming over and said, "Grab your bag and come over there because I think you're playing today." And he was against Surrey. Nick Knight was suffering from a dodgy back at that time, and yes, yeah, nothing's changed. And sort of went over, and it was sort of 10:15, and Dermot was just before he was about to go out to toss, shook my hand and said, "You're playing today." So within the space of about 40 minutes, I was sort of strapping my pads on and ready to walk out at Edgbaston. So it was a great experience. It's something that I didn't really have time to reflect on, having tried to work towards this for a long time.
And so time to get nervous.
The opportunity, no time to get nervous. And so, it was great just being part of that environment, averaging nearly 50 as part of that double winning team, but just being involved with these guys and just seeing how they worked, their work ethic, all of those things, and it was just an incredible place to be, and very successful because we'd won the treble the year before with Lara. And then
that's when he got the 501, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. And then Donald came the year after. So I think pretty much at that stage we had about 7 players or 8 players who'd either represented England A or international teams at that stage. It's a great environment to be in.
What was Lara like in those days to play with?
He was great. When he used to turn up on time, he was fantastic. But no, he was brilliant. He was great. He'd turn up to the dressing room. He just gave everybody a lift, because I think everybody wanted to lift their own games to kind of almost prove a point to him. Yeah. And I remember Roger Toos, when Brian turned up for the first day, and he pinned on Brian Lara's locker, he'd pinned something along the lines of, "We'd like to welcome the second best left-hander in the country," because he used to open himself. And so it was great having him in that environment, because I think it lifted everybody, and everybody fed off him, and became better cricketers, I think.